haven't been on TikTok for a minute. I deleted it. However, my Substack has been infiltrated by this concept called personal curriculums, which was apparently a thing that was started by someone on TikTok. I don't know what. It's infiltrated everything. I'm sorry I can't find the original source. I don't have TikTok. However, I've been seeing it everywhere because I follow a lot of the intellectual girlies. And some people do them every month. Some people do them by seasons. Some people have set up a whole year. But essentially, it's creating a curriculum of learning for yourself about a particular topic as an adult that's outside of school. The people yearn for graduate school. And as someone who went to graduate school, I do not. However, what I do yearn for is being able to take those random courses that you basically could never fit in your schedule, like random electives on a very niche topic that is just like, man, how do I get that to work? Because that sounds really fun and cool. Oh no, I have to take stats instead because it's a requirement for my degree. And I do like having a little bit of structure. So while some people are like creating whole courses for themselves, like with reading materials and assignments and naming the course, I'm not doing that because I know I will get stuck in being perfectionistic about my fake school course name, and that's not helpful to me. So what I did create was a little fall curriculum. Now, you might be saying, Sam, it's September. It's already like almost the end of September. Fall started a while ago. No, it did not. I know. As a spooky girl, you're probably like, doesn't fall start for you like August 1st? No, it does not, because I am a spooky girl that gets horrible seasonal depression. And so the sun going away, sad for me. I don't want to be out in the sun, obviously, but it's sad for me. So I like to start celebrating fall when the equinox happens, which is on the 22nd. So we're right on time, baby. So this is my fall curriculum. So for fall, it was pretty easy for me to be like, what's a topic that I kind of want to get into? Because witchcraft wise, the fall is very like, okay, harvest seasons, like thinning of the veil, ancestor work. And so around this time, I always get back into like learning a little bit more about ancestors and stuff. And each year I've gotten deeper and deeper into that. And this year finally feels like a culmination of that. So I was like, let's do some heavier deep dives into that. So I've broken up my curriculum into a couple of different things. I've broken it up into reading, rituals, and some witchcraft stuff. Now you're probably like, aren't rituals and witchcraft the same thing? Sort of, but rituals are like a bigger deal, and I just had some stuff in there about the different like big holidays in the fall season, and the witchcraft stuff is a little bit more like vague everyday stuff. So my various questions that I kind of want to answer or get more information on are, how did various cultures work with their ancestors and the dead? This is a separate topic from like, views on death and all of that. There's a lot of information on that. This is specifically ancestor related work. And very generally, I'm going to kind of add to this depending on what time I have, but I also want to do some deep dives into like the meanings of fall, how it is preparing for winter, getting ready for the winter season, and that ties into some of my later tasks. So the first book is a book that I've already finished that I was reading towards the end of August and then beginning to middle of September, and that is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about this book, but this is a book written by an indigenous botanist who basically just talks about, like, it's a little bit of memoir-y at times, but it's talking about different indigenous plants in the United States. She is part of the Potawatomi tribe, and the lessons you can like learn from plants from a scientific perspective, but mostly from an indigenous knowledge perspective. It's amazing and incredible, and I love it. And I read it for my local book club, tabbed it up, made a lot of notes. And this ties into some of those themes, just one, because I needed to read it for book club anyway, but also because it's kind of is like, okay, what lessons can we learn from the land, right? So I will talk about this more in depth in the future. I'll probably do a more in-depth post about it on the Bibliothecary, which I will link down below. That is my newsletter where I do written posts and podcasts and things like that about some of these like nonfiction books that I get into. So if you want more ramblings on that, check it out. Then next is my book that is about the witchcraft side of things, right? So that is honoring your ancestors. And this is written by a folk witch talking about ancestor veneration, both from like her practice of it and more of like the how-tos of things, and also tying in a couple different like folk practices and things. So shorter book, but lots of information about the witchcraft side of things. Then I wanted more of like a historical perspective, right? So I did a little bit of a deep dive, and I got a bit obsessive about this, but the personal curriculum girlies kind of plugged me into this, which is going to actual university curriculum pages on certain classes. And a lot of them, not all, and I'll get to that in a second, a lot of them list the curriculum required readings just like free, like it's on the website connected to the classes and stuff. So you can go and kind of see like, what are some of the books that some of these university professors and stuff recommend. Obviously, you're not getting every single resource that they're going to use in their course, but required readings are frequently listed, or you can look them up even on the university bookstore. If you find a class that looks cool and you want to see what their like course materials are, you can usually find them there. So I did a little deep dive. Tragically, that provided a conundrum for me because I found Brown University's anthropology department. And they have the perfect class, and there's no course materials listed for it. And I also found out through a deep dive of research about this that it hasn't been held since spring of 2016, and it is an absolute crime. Let me read you the synopsis of this course. It is titled Holy Spirits, Ancestor Worship in the Ancient Near East and Beyond, looking at ancestor veneration in both the ancient and modern world, from Mesopotamia and Egypt to the classic world in the Americas. This course will focus on 3 different angles: individual, communal, and material. We will consider grief, mourning, loss, and death's impact on families, kin, or elites. How did ancestors shape community social memories, identities, and religious practices? Finally, we will explore spirits' material traces, examining specific ancestral monuments and landscapes. I want the materials for this course so badly, and it was only ran once, and I don't know how to find, but if you went to Brown and you took this class, let me know. As a little aside, if you look at the anthropology, archaeology department for Brown, incredible classes listed. Interactions with the dead, past and present. Somewhere back in time, archaeology, the ancient world, and heavy metal music. There's more than this, but this is really the crowning achievement. The private life of the privy, a secret history of toilets. Whole course that they've actually run multiple times, because I looked at that one. And so my ancestor worship class was only taught once. This is taught like once a year. Nothing can convince me to return to academia. However, that gets very, very close. So in all of my research at different courses at different universities, I found a lot of books on like death and death rituals and things like that, that I will probably read at a later point when I have a curriculum that I do. But I did find one book that seems to match the like specific ancestor work thing. And that's more of a textbook that was written in 2016 called The Archaeology of the Ancestors, Death, Memory, and Veneration. And my public library happens to have it, so I've placed a hold on it. It might be just a big chunky textbook that I'm not gonna read a lot of, but even if I just flip through it and get some like historical stuff, that will suit me. So that is the required reading that I am doing. So for the rituals, I'm going to be doing a ritual for the autumnal equinox, as well as Samhain, which is Halloween, and then something specifically with Persephone. So I've worked with Persephone for quite some time. If you want more information on witchcraft stuff and my witchcraft practice, I do not post that like super publicly. That is also on the Bibliothecary because it's a more private thing that I want to talk about with a smaller community. But if you want more information about that, check it out there. So Persephone is a deity that I have honored for a while and like worked with for a while. I'm trying to now be more intentional about working with her. I've done a lot of just like veneration of her and like lighting a candle and forming a relationship. So these days I want to do more of a working. And so that will be tied to, but not the exact same as the autumnal equinox ritual that I'll be doing. That's specifically just about like the seasons and the place and time and whatever. Although Persephone is tied to the equinox because that's kind of classically when she's going back down to the underworld for that like dark half of the year. So something between the equinox and Samhain will be some kind of Persephone ritual, and I will write probably more about that on the Bibliothecary for more in-depth details about what I eventually work out with that. I have a couple things that I'm already doing for the equinox that I have planned because that's right around the corner when I'm filming this. So I have sort of like a Thanksgiving-y type gathering at the like yoga/witchcraft studio that I'm a part of in Chicago, and also going to be doing something on the actual equinox that's just like a like bonfire down at the beach kind of thing. And so doing some kind of like harvesty type vibe, whatever I end up deciding with that. And then around Samhain, for the past handful of years, I've done some like ancestor divination type stuff, like speaking with the ancestors, and a like dumb supper is what they call it, which is like a mute supper, like you do not speak through it and you leave a plate for the ancestors and things. A lot of cultures do that. That's what I've been doing the last handful of years for Samhain, but again, I'll write more about that, what this year's plans are later. And lastly, I have a couple of witchcraft related tasks, some of them just like being a little bit more minor. So one of them is adding all of the witchcraft books that I've already read and tabbed up into my Obsidian. So I haven't talked about that a lot here, but Obsidian is a platform that I'm using it's not on the cloud, it's not AI, it's not any of that. It's like a note-taking platform that connects all of your thoughts in like a thought matrix web thing, and it's a really good thing for me to conceptualize and like connect thoughts and all of that. So I have finally found a way, instead of having to like write everything down, to put all of that information into a place and like connect all of the things. So I am taking all of my previously read witchcraft books, I'm pointing here because they're behind you, how I'm filming, and I'm putting the information that I thought was salient from there into that to make all the connections and things. I also talked about that in the Bibliothecary, not to keep mentioning it, but these are some of the topics that I talk about on the Bibliothecary often, so they are tying into posts I've already made with more detail if you are interested. So in addition to doing that, I'm going to specifically be focusing on my, like with all of this ancestor veneration stuff that I'm learning about, incorporating some of those things that I will add to this list later as I come up with them. But the main one that I for sure am going to be doing is some kind of like ancestor divination stuff of like communicating a little bit more in that way, like with tarot cards specifically. That's like what I use for divination. But as I have some more things around learning about ancestor stuff that I'm not already doing, I will use those activities added into this curriculum, which I have on Notion, to just like start adding to, okay, I've learned a thing, how do we apply it? And then also I will be writing about it again in the newsletter. So that's how people are kind of conceptualizing these curriculums, is that, okay, when we're not like learning in a more structured format in the way that we used to at universities and things, then are we losing some of this, like holding on to some of our knowledge? And a lot of times we'll like read a thing, but then not actually do anything with the information or create something out of it, which is what we have to do in school, right? We have to do activities related to readings. We have to write papers in addition to readings. Like we create our own stuff out of the things we learn, and that helps solidify it in our brains. So that is what this is. I'm doing activities about it, and I'm doing writings about it, some videos about it, things like that, to fully like synthesize it in my brain and apply it moving forwards. Lifelong learning is good, guys. So yeah, those are my plans for fall. So comment below. Let me know if you have any kind of personal curriculum things. Do you do that in like seasonally? Do you do it monthly? How does that work for you? Or is this the first time you're hearing about this? Comment below and let me know. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.